Hi, everyone. Fentrice Driskell here, Democratic leader in the Florida House. Welcome to this week's episode of the Driskell Debrief. I appreciate you coming here every week and spending time. You know that I'm a big believer in stories, and that the more that we can share our stories, the more we'll realize how much we have in common and really build a sense of community throughout our state. And if we save our state, I believe we can save our country. So let's see what's been going on since we last met. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I had my campaign kickoff last week. And thank you to everyone who supported, whether you gave a contribution or you gave of your time to come out or you helped to amplify the message on social media. We really appreciate it. We had an incredible turnout. My poor team, poor Kristen, they work so hard. So if you see any of my team members, make sure you give them a shout out and say thank you for how hard they worked that event. It was incredible. We had well over 100 people. It was a beautiful showing of just support and enthusiasm in the community. And I know that I appreciate people investing in the work that I'm trying to do. I believe that every Floridian deserves the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe, regardless of whether they're down in the Florida Keys in Monroe County or if they're all the way up in the Panhandle. I care for Florida. I love Florida. This is my state by birth, but whether you're a Floridian by birth or by choice, I just believe that Florida is worth investing in and worth saving. And so it means a lot to me that other people can appreciate that vision and that they gave of their time to come out to the campaign kickoff. So thank you to all the volunteers, all the elected officials. We had folks who were currently elected and past electeds. We had faith leaders. The crowd was so diverse. It just was a beautiful, beautiful time. And I can remember, even though much of the evening is a blur because there was so much going on, when I went to the podium to give my remarks and to thank the crowd for being there and to share a little bit, just a few words, I feel like my breath, I lost my breath. Like my breath was just taken away as I looked at the crowd and just saw the beauty of the crowd, because the crowd was so diverse. I mean, across every metric, race, gender, ethnicity, LGBTQ. It just was faith. I mean, it just was a beautiful example of how diverse our community is. And I think, unfortunately, we are living in a time in our state where diversity is being demonized. But I think my counterparts across the aisle are getting it wrong. It's our diversity that is our strength. There is so much beauty and so much strength in that. I think it makes for a much richer community. We can learn from one another. We can support one another. We can invest in each other and in our causes. And that's what I'm about. And that actually is a large part of what our conversation today is going to be about. If you didn't know, May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, AAPI Heritage Month. And while we've been celebrating this all month long at Team Fentrice, we thought it would be great to close out the month and hear from a very powerful voice within that community. And so today it is going to be my pleasure to introduce you to Echo King. Now, some of you may have already heard of Echo because her name truly precedes herself, especially if you're over in Central Florida. But let me tell you a little bit about my friend Echo. So Echo Michin King is an immigration attorney based in Orlando, Florida, and the co-founder and president of the Florida Asian American Justice Alliance, or FAAJA, as we like to refer to it. It is a statewide nonprofit organization that is dedicated to advancing justice and equality for the AAPI community. Under Echo's leadership, FAAJA has quickly become a significant force within the Chinese community in Florida. Echo has played a pivotal role in challenging discriminatory legislation, such as Senate Bill 264, which was a bad bill from 2023. We're going to talk about that a lot today. And that bill restricts property purchases by individuals from specific countries. Her efforts include statewide rallies, collaborating with other national AAPI organizations and various ethnic groups, endorsing political candidates, and initiating legislative changes. Echo recently received a historic milestone by becoming the first Chinese American in Florida, elected as a delegate to the 2024 Democratic National Convention in Congressional District 11, sending a powerful message to the traditionally politically cautious Asian American community. She is a boss. She is a leader. She's my friend. Let me bring to the stage Echo King. Hi, Echo.
Hi, Leader Driskell. Thank you so much for having me on, and congratulations on the successful campaign kickoff. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend, but I know some of my DR members were able to go and celebrate with you.
It was so awesome. Yes, FAAJA was represented strong in Tampa, and it was just so amazing. Even one of the FAAJA members from Orlando drove over for the event, which was really special to me. So thank you so much.
No, we thank you. Thank you for all you do that, fight for a just and equal and prosperous Florida. You do such a big job. Such a big job. I don't know how you do it, but you do it so well. I truly admire you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's start out actually with some additional good news. I heard that you just won an award. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, this month is AAPI month. Actually I received an email by surprise, congratulating me about receiving this award. This is the National Diversity Council. They have a 10 this year. I believe every year they issue the top leader awards to about 8 to 10 recipients, and I was one of them. And my board members, apparently they applied for this award for me, and I was selected. So I'm very, very surprised but very happy. It's a big honor for me.
Well, congratulations on that, winning a national award this month. That's huge. So happy for you. Now let's get into our conversation. I talked a little bit in the intro about FAAJA and what it is, but why don't you tell our viewers in your own words, what is FAAJA? What is its mission? What does your work look like?
Sure. I'm a immigration attorney. I've been living I was not born here, not like you. But I've been living in Central Florida in Orange County area for over 18 years. I moved to the U.S. 20 years ago from China, and I went to law school here in Orlando and became an immigration attorney. So FAAJA was established only a year ago. Before this, I was just focusing on my career and the family, just like most Asian Americans do. I was not involved much in politics or even in this kind of issues. But a year ago, in April 2023, the Senate Bill 264 was introduced, and I was just told that when it was unanimously passed in the Senate, we didn't even know. So that shows how much we are not involved in the politics. But when we first knew about this, it's already passed the Senate, and we just started to on that week, we mobilized, went to Tallahassee. 130 of us showed up in Tallahassee at the hearing. We testified against this bill. But unfortunately...
Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the bill. What was Senate Bill, or what is Senate Bill 264? I know it passed in 2023. I know I voted against that bill, but why don't we tell our viewers, what is that bill?
Sure. So SB 264, it has several layers, right? Mostly it's just it says it's for national security reasons. It prohibiting the people, the countries, and also the people, citizens from those 7 countries of concern from buying land. And also specifically, there's a Section 7, we call Section 7, that targeting addresses to Chinese citizens, including those already living in Florida for years. If they don't have green card or the citizen, then they are prohibited from buying houses. There's very, very narrow exception. I can't show you the map here, but if you look at the map with the layers of restriction, the big piece of red, we have a map that shows that what area what area are allowed to buy the house, but basically not not many places, not too many places. It's all covered that by restrictions. Majority of Florida. So
I will
basically,
say that I have seen that
you
map,
have seen the map.
and it basically pushes people away from any and everything. I mean, because you never know what could be designated as critical infrastructure. And we also have so much farmland in Florida. It's very difficult to get away from that by 10 miles, right?
Yeah, exactly. That, farmland and also the critical infrastructure and military installation, all these layers add on top each other, makes like geographically, it's impossible, to buy any meaningful in an area that's close to work or even close to where where the community are. So, and violation of this will be subject to up to 5-year imprisonment for any buyers, and 1 year imprisonment for seller. So this impact is huge. There's really there's no evidence that showing Chinese citizens are in Florida are using the buying house and have a national security threat. There's no evidence at all, but passing this law just really make our life hard, and we feel discriminated against, and also we don't feel safe because this is the first law. I mean, what's going to happen next? And we know other similar bills already have passed. We'll probably talk about that later, but the whole it's extremist. It's going too extreme, and we just feel like we have to fight back. When we first realized this bill, we were shocked. Basically, we didn't, understand it, what would happen. So we decided to organize and mobilize and fight back. And so after that, we had the bill. Unfortunately, the bill passed. So we did rallies, organized several statewide rallies, mobilizing our community to even. And at this bill, 2024 legislative session, thanks to you that we filed our bill to amend amend the SB 264, even though it didn't pass. But we are very happy that we did something to fight back.
That's right. And so let's go back to that week in 2023 where you first caught wind of Senate Bill 264, that bad discriminatory bill. And you said that you decided to mobilize. I mean, what was that like? Who started that? How did that start out? How did you start organizing? And maybe even, I guess there's an underlying question. You said that, it seems that bill caused a lot of fear, I would imagine, and a lot of anxiety and anger and other emotions in the community. Could you talk about what the community was going through? Maybe even what you personally were going through when you heard about that bill?
Yes. So traditionally, I would say Chinese Americans and most other Asian Americans too, we are kind of quiet. We keep our heads down. We just work hard, and we don't want to be too involved in politics, because like China, I'm from China, mainland China, it's just not smart, and it's dangerous even to be more involved. So we just try to keep everything to ourselves. That's our community, that's our culture. But that's why it's so significant that 130 of us, we traveled to Tallahassee. I mean, for me personally, I never even traveled to Tallahassee before. I lived in Central Florida for 18 years, but that was my first time.
Yeah.
Visit the state capitol and trying to talk to the legislators, trying to understand how the bill was drafted and passed, and why this kind of bill was even considered, right? This is such a blatantly discriminatory and bill. Why would that even be drafted and passed? And we were thinking that if we tell them this is not right, and then they will be change their mind. That's what we were thinking at the beginning. We didn't understand, but then when we went there, it's the reality is they already made up their mind that they wanted. We will basically feel like we are scapegoated, right? They scapegoating us, Chinese citizens. The idea is China and U.S. they have bad tension, the bad relationship, but so the Chinese citizens in U.S. will be, assumption is we are spies, basically. We will be spies. We are spies. That's why they're prohibiting us from buying land. And how to change that, it's not that simple. I mean, by just try to talk to them rationally, it doesn't work. And so that's why, even though we have fear, we figure we decided we have to mobilize it. So right outside of the state capitol building on that day, that's April 19th. I still remember that day, 2023. After we testify against the hearing, but the bill still passed. So we decided right outside the building, 130 of us, we gathered there. We decided we must form an organization to fight this kind of bill. And that's how the FAAJA was born.
Well, I really commend you on taking action, because there's a lot of bad bills that have been coming from Florida lately that have been discriminatory, bills that have been vague and that have left unintended consequences that are hurting people. Attacks on teaching history accurately, the book bans, attacks on transgender children, attacks on women and the decisions they can make. Property insurance rates are very high, and it's very difficult to find an affordable place to live. And, rather than focus on those kitchen table issues that could actually improve people's lives, like how do we make healthcare more accessible? How do we solve for these affordability issues? We have a legislature that has tended to focus on these other types of issues that are frankly just culture wars. These are issues that divide people, but they do lead to real harm in communities. And I know my concern with Senate Bill 264, just as an attorney reading the plain text of the bill, I could see that bill was unconstitutional. And in fact, as this bill has been challenged in court, there are judges who are taking a look at this and who are agreeing and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. So I looked at that bill and I could see on its face that it was discriminatory and possibly even unconstitutional. So we'll see what happens as the bill continues to work its way through, through the court system. But I really want to commend you and the leaders of FAAJA who pulled this group together, because I'm starting to see heroes rise all across the state, and folks who are saying enough is enough. We are tired of the extremism. We are tired of leaders who want to divide us. I find that people are especially tired of leaders who don't listen to them. And I could hear that coming out in what you were saying. You're here in Tallahassee, you're meeting with the folks who are in leadership who are Republican and saying, hey, this bill will hurt our community, don't pass it. And they wouldn't listen. Right? Is that what I'm picking up on?
Exactly. We were frustrated on that day. We were going to all different offices. We're trying to tell them how harmful this is. Please listen to us. We were to try to knock out the doors and just telling them, but we face is a different. It's very, very different. From the reaction is so. We just feel like we were not heard. Even we were talking to them, but they were not listening. And we were there, but we were invisible. That's how we feel. And something must be done. And just imagine for a Chinese community that's, traditionally we were so quiet. We don't do things like this. But then we decided to form this organization because we feel so unfairly treated. That's how we decided to do this.
Well, I welcome more AAPI voices to the conversation. I think it's so important to have that bridge, and I believe in inclusivity and making sure that all folks are feeling represented in whatever is the conversation, and especially the conversation around who we're going to be as a state and how we're going to treat people in this state. And I want to be thoughtful about this, because I hear this a lot from groups when they come to Tallahassee, that they don't feel heard. But I don't want that to discourage anybody from coming to Tallahassee, because I actually think that the more we can have people who are engaged and who come and who demand the respect, demand the attention of lawmakers, the better the impact can be. I've actually seen advocacy change the outcome on bills, not on every bill, but I've seen it happen on some bills, and that wouldn't have been possible if the public weren't paying attention, if the public weren't, watching and listening and holding lawmakers accountable and coming to Tallahassee. So you never know the impact that you can have on legislation. But that's just inside the building. I mean, when I think about you, Echo, and I think about FAAJA, I'm thinking about the impact that you're also having outside of the building in terms of getting your community engaged, in terms of pushing for, actually focusing on electing leaders who reflect your values and who are going to push for legislation or changes at the local level that will not hurt the AAPI community, but instead might actually be supportive and help. I mentioned a second ago that we've seen the Republican Party get away with a lot by creating legislation that's filled with holes and with vague language. How do you feel that this relates to Senate Bill 264, and what concerns do you have about that?
Yes, this 264, SB 264, also it's sending this wrong message that the country is the same, and the government is the same as its people, which is totally untrue. So the Chinese citizens living in Florida, the Chinese Americans living in Florida, they are not the same as their country origin, right? So this is a totally two different concept. If by equating them to one to another, it's very dangerous, because then just imagine how much discrimination we'll face. Anti-Asian hate crimes will definitely increase. We already seen that increase skyrocketed after China virus. Those terms have been used during that area. So we really afraid that and then the China-U.S. relationship will continue. Looks like it won't be any better anytime soon. So we really hope that any legislature that will pass this type of law will be mindful of the people already living in Florida, living in U.S. We are not the same as the government, the country origin. So that's the message I really want to send to across the. I want the general public to know, and also please have the legislators to know about this.
I am so glad that you pointed that out. That is so true. And what an unfair and overly broad brushstroke just to assume that people would be the same as their government. Thank you for that. I know that there are a couple of other bills that have been discriminatory or having adverse impacts on the Asian American community. We talked about a couple of them before we started our program. So could you tell us about Senate Bill 846? That's another bill from 2023, and the impact that that bill has had on your community?
Yes, definitely. The SB 846. That's another bill that's assuming that the people from China, just because of their country, China is an enemy of U.S., then the Chinese, the citizens, students and scholars and academic from China will be spies. That's the assumption. So the Chinese students. Basically, the Florida public universities are not allowed to accept any Chinese students from China, right? And also the students already in Florida universities, including PhD students, they are banned from going to the lab to the research. So the impact is huge. We have hundreds of students like UCF, USF, all these large universities have a number of scholars and professors and from China, so they are all directly impacted. They can't find any students from China to help them. Or also, if you can't go to the lab, how can you finish? How can you complete your research? So I know that a lot of people are leaving Florida for the better future, because they're economically they can't really accomplish anything here in Florida.
Yeah, it makes me very concerned, because I think this will end up making us less competitive as a state. I know that I've been hearing reports locally in the district and in the community that I represent that this is actually happening, that it's difficult to find students to fill the labs. I'm also hearing it's difficult to fill certain positions in our research institutions just because people don't feel safe in the state anymore. And that breaks my heart, because when I think about America, I think about those quintessential values of freedom. And we are, and as much as we're a country, we're also an ideal, always striving to be a more perfect union, and always like that beacon on the hill that offers people a pathway to a better life. And it just seems that so many of these bills are anti-American, they're anti-freedom. And when I think about Florida, I mean, Floridians particularly value our freedom, but here we are with these bad bills, and really just causing people to be othered, causing people to not feel like they can be a part of this community, and making them feel like this American dream is not for everybody. So that's a very troubling one. And I'm glad that you brought that to my attention and to the community's attention. What about Senate Bill 264? That was another bill from this year. And I think that one also has had some adverse impacts on the community, or the potential to, right?
You're talking about the, I think that's not 264. I forgot the name. I think
Oh,
it's
1264? Maybe it's
yeah,
1260.
something. Yes, that's
Okay.
the bill. I'm really concerned because on the surface it's teaching, the mandatory teaching of communism to K-12 students. But my concern is the same. When it's taught, first of all, why would a kindergarten need to learn about communism, right? They are learning basic, they're trying
Right.
to learn counting and basic math and, letters and those things. But why would they even need to know communism? And my son is first grader. And after this bill, when he goes back to school after summer, I'm just afraid that what they will teach him. I mean, he looks like me. He's Chinese, so you can't really hide from like being Chinese, right? So we can't really pretend we are not Chinese. Before he was proud because he's learning Chinese, and he was proud to speak Chinese to people. And then during the Chinese New Year, I used to pack some Chinese traditions to the school, to the kids, like the cookies and the red envelopes, to show that our Chinese culture, we were proud. But now after this, I'm just afraid that to what extent they will teach them. Will they really equate Chinese citizen with Chinese descent with the Chinese government or the communism? When they talk about the communism, will they automatically think of Chinese people as evil, demonize the Chinese people? That's what I am afraid of. And as a kindergartner, first grade, elementary students, they have no, how would they connect those? How would they understand these concepts, the distinctions? So that's what I'm afraid of. And I don't even want my son to go to school and speak Chinese, tell them that he's Chinese anymore, because then they will, naturally the question comes to next will be, are you communist? Right? Well, that will be discussions, the conversations among the first graders. So I'm really afraid that's going to happen. And because when I grew up in China, we were mandatory. We're learning that the U.S. is imperialism and all these things. So Americans, when we grew up, we think Americans are evil, just like the U.S. is evil, because imperialist. So Americans are evil too. So what I'm afraid is in U.S., when the kids growing up learning this without clear distinction of the people and the country are different, and they will automatically, naturally think that the impression will be the Chinese Americans are different from regular Americans. They have some kind of communism in them.
Right. And so how did you unlearn that? Like, how did you learn to distinguish between the two? Like, how did you learn, like, hey, actually, America is not so bad. Hey, people are not bad. Like, I actually want to even go to this country.
Exactly. That's what happened after China has its open door policy in 1980, 1990s. And we start to learn about, we call it Western culture, Western, that's how we start to relearn everything what we're taught when we're little. So that takes a long time. it just takes decades for us to redo what we're already told when we're little, when we're young. And I really hope that in US, we don't really go just like what we experience in China again. That's how I come to the United States, because after I learned more about America, and I know that this is really, like you said, beacon of hope. We can practice equality. It can be, we can actually achieve American dreams. If you work hard, if everybody can be treated equally. We have Constitution. This is amazing country. That's what we thought. And when I first learned about this, last year, I just have to rethink what I had had all these good things about America. Actually, America can do something wrong too, and it's critical that we correct the wrongs. Right? So we go back to the original, that American. That the beacon of hope, that image that we give to the rest of the world, we still can remain the best, the best country in the whole world. It can be the hope of the world.
I think that's absolutely right. And that's why I think, our founding fathers, or the framers of the Constitution, when they talked about America always striving to be that more perfect union, I think that is the best aspect of our country. That no, we may not always get it right, but we must always strive to do better. And, in my own experience as a Black woman who's from the South, right? Like I grew up in Florida, I grew up in the South. My parents grew up in the civil rights movement. I think about some of the things that I've been able to accomplish in my life. And I know that it wouldn't have been possible but for that opportunity that the American dream affords us. Has it always been easy? No. Has it always been discrimination free? No. Sometimes it's really, really hard, but we must all do our part to push America to be the best that she can be. And so I'm so glad that you are engaged in the process now, and that you continue to keep an open mind and an open heart, because that's really what it takes. It takes all of us doing what we can in our respective positions, our respective, lanes, or whatever space we occupy in the community, to do what we can to help our country to be better, this country that we love to be the best that it can be, because it's truly amazing to be here, and the opportunities that are afforded to us. So let's talk a little bit about AAPI involvement in politics, because you've mentioned it now a couple times that typically you don't see Asian Americans involved in politics. It just hasn't been part of the culture here in America. So what do you believe are some of the key barriers preventing greater Asian American participation in politics, and how can those barriers be addressed?
Yes, I just want to share some information. Like AAPI, Asian American AAPI population, AAPI actually is the fastest growing population in racial ethnicity groups in U.S. And there's research, there's a data, like in 2020 there were 22 million of AAPI community in U.S. and then it's projected in 2060 will be 46 million, and they will by 2061 the AAPI community will be the largest immigrant group, surpassing Hispanics. So that's some data, and then but compared to all other minority or racial groups, AAPI is a completely very, very underrepresented. It's either unrepresented at all or underrepresented. Like it's, for example, in state of Florida, right? We have zero representation, I guess, in the legislation, in the state legislation.
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, and then even in the local levels too, you don't really see any Asian the represented in the city, county, or any local levels. And in the federal too, Congress or Senate, there are very, very few representations. So this is a big issue. I think it has the reason of that is has several reasons. Mainly, it's because from the culture wise, it's a culture. We have cultural barrier. I think for the first generation, of course, we are very careful. For example, when we're from China, right, we are careful not to be involved, because it is in China is when we grew up, involving politics just means it's bad. It means danger, right? You don't know what's going to happen to you and your family. It's just not a good idea. And
because
so,
the government was so oppressive.
exactly, government is just suppressing all these things. So, but even after we come here, because our parents, right, the parents teach us to be just to work hard and economically excel in economically. That's the culture thing. So we really I want our next generation to be different. So in FAAJA, we have youth development group, youth development programs. We're trying to also educate the parents. We're teaching the kids to be more civic engagement activities, get involved, to visit the court. I mean, visit the courthouse and visit, the county mayor's office, have a conversation with the local elected officials, to try to just broaden their views, their just give them a platform so they may be consider other options when they grow up. So that's also another program that we're doing in FAAJA. And so the traditionally, just because of tradition, we're very cautious. We just don't want the trouble, right? That's one thing. And also that's a big barrier, is that I think it's that our culture. So we have but we're American. We live in America, so we should really change this concept, change this mindset. And we really need somebody to look like us, to represent us, and then that will really give a hope to other rest of the communities. See, oh, look at her, we have somebody look like me in that position, so everyone else, we can, other people can do that too. So that's also another, we'll lead by example. We want other people to see that we have representations, encourage the general public to get more involved in the voter process, to vote for the people who truly represent us, and also select one of our own to be to go to that different levels of to go to be representatives as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate the thought about getting young people involved at an early age and teaching them about civic education. Because when I was a kid, it actually was a summer program called Florida Girls State that taught me about government and that got me interested and put me on this path. It was a long, winding path. Sometimes I was off the path, but towards this path of being engaged in the way that I am now in terms of being an elected official. And, you also really talked about how representation matters. And I agree with that so much. In the Florida legislature, for example, when I ran for the House back in 2018 for the first time, the Florida House had fewer than 30% women in it. And I think we're doing a little better now, but it's just lacking in terms of being truly reflective of the diversity that we have in our community. And I think people need to be able to look at their government and see themselves reflected. So I hope that this will lead to maybe some folks from the AAPI community to run for office. I think that would be amazing. I think it would be incredible. So we're definitely aligned in that, and that we need to see more representation and see people from all backgrounds feel like they can take a part in their government. They can have a part and play a role and run for office.
Exactly. That's extremely important, that we really, really need. Representative really matters. I mean, that's the younger generation will look up to the whoever that, if their elected official look like them, if their leadership leaders look like them, then they will be more motivated, right? They will be more inclined to pursue that kind of career. So that's very important. Yes.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's also important maybe in this conversation to talk about allyship. Like, I have tried to be a good ally, and I try to be the type of elected official that, even if there's not representation in the room of that specific group, they will know that they have a voice in the room, because I will always stand up for what is right and stand up for marginalized communities, because it's important to do it. And it simply is just the right thing to do. And being a part of a community that has been marginalized over so much of our history, I know what that's like. I may not know the exact path that you're walking in terms of exactly being in your shoes, but I know what it's like to feel like you're not being treated fairly, or that you're not being seen, or that your voice isn't being heard. And so that's the type of approach that I try to take as a lawmaker. And so it has been my honor to partner with FAAJA and to work with you in pushing back against these bad and discriminatory bills. But maybe we could end on a really positive note, which is getting back to the fact that you are the first Chinese American in Florida's history to be elected as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. Congratulations to you, Echo, on that. You want to talk a little bit about what that means to you, and maybe how you hope that that might encourage more civic participation in your community as well?
So even a year ago, I didn't even know what delegate is. But through this journey, I feel like we should participate in all different levels of in the political arena, including the party events. The endorsing the representatives or legislators who represent our interest, align with our interest. And also that's how we can have our voice heard. And through by participating in this delegate, I'm just trying to send a message to my community members that this level of representatives also matters, because we will be able to meet and discuss important issues that our community faces. And every opportunity, we should seek all kinds of opportunity to get our voice heard, to make allyship, to make friends. That's the message I want to send to my community.
Can I just say that I love that everything that you do, even though you are the one, you're receiving some accolades, you're getting some national attention and doing all these wonderful things. I hear it in you, Echo, in your heart, that you are centered on your community, and that for you, it's all about making a positive impact in the lives of other people. And I just see that, and I respect it so much. Thank you, Echo King, for coming on to our live stream. We appreciate you. Thank you for this great conversation. I hope I get to see you some other time soon.
Thank you so much, Leader Driskell. Thank you very much. We really appreciate all that you do.
Yes, my pleasure. So what a great conversation, and hearing from Echo about what motivated her and her community to get involved in politics. And it breaks my heart that it took something like a discriminatory bill to move them to action. Yet there's a powerful lesson in this, which is that you have to take ownership in your government. You have to take ownership in being informed about the laws that are being passed, and making sure that you know who your elected officials are, so that you can talk to them and hold your elected officials accountable. That, to me, is the most important narrative, or the most important lesson we can learn from FAAJA, which is that, there was a bad bill that was being passed. They decided, hey, we're not going to take this discrimination. They organized, and now they make sure that their voices are being heard all across the state and all across the nation. And even though we weren't able to get that bad law repealed, my hope, and I think it's Echo's hope as well, is that we'll see more Asian American participation in politics. There'll be better representation and inclusion, and so that they can be more of an active part of the conversation. And just maybe if we continue to organize and push for the positive change that we want to see, we'll be able to accomplish that. I think it also matters to be educated and informed. So it's good to hear from Echo and her community about how these bills are impacting them, so that as lawmakers, and really even just as folks in the community, we can be better equipped to be advocates and to be allies. So I really thank Echo for that conversation. I thought it was very rich and a great way to end AAPI month. So friends, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you. We are pre-recording this video, and just to let you in on a couple things happening in my personal life. It's an interesting circle of life moment that we're having with our family this weekend. We are laying to rest my dear Aunt Mabel Leonard. Mabel Leonard was my great aunt. So she was my dad's last living aunt, the last member of that generation in the family. And you want to talk about a woman who was ahead of her time. She was an entrepreneur. She was a businesswoman. She had a thriving business or multiple businesses in Bartow, Florida, where my dad is from. And we always looked up to Aunt Mabel because she showed us that it was possible as a Black woman to succeed in business, to be a leader in the community. She was the co-founder of this wonderful service organization, the Ladies of Essence. She was a leader in our church. She sang in the choir. She was just widely looked to as a woman of great standing and stature and excellence in the community. And she was always a positive role model for me. So we are going to give her the most beautiful celebration of life, the most beautiful send-off today. And it makes me miss her greatly and miss my grandma and all my aunts and uncles in that generation. But much love, sending much love to the memory of my aunt Mabel Leonard. So please keep my family in your prayers. And then the full circle moment that I was talking about, we're also celebrating my brother-in-law Willie's birthday. We always have around Memorial Day a Willie Day celebration to celebrate his birthday. And that's also happening in the same day where we'll be honoring and giving thanks and just having gratitude in our hearts that he's lived another year. So, I know that you all are out there living your lives too, and maybe you're dealing with loss or tragedy or celebration. Whatever it is, make sure that you are expressing as much gratitude as you can for the things that you have and that you're trying to pay it forward and impact somebody else in a positive way. Because friends, I think that's what life is all about. So thank you so much for tuning in. I cannot wait to see you for a future episode. And remember, if you have ideas or thoughts about content that you want to see us talk about, that's super easy. Just drop us an email at yourvoice@fentriceforflorida.com. That's yourvoice@fentriceforflorida.com. You can also reach out to us over social media. We love to hear from you. We love to hear your stories. Also, just to uplift something that Echo mentioned in our conversation, which was the importance of voting. So here's your weekly reminder to make sure that you are registered to vote. Make sure that your friends and family are registered to vote. Do not take it for granted and go ahead and request your vote by mail ballot so that you'll already have it. You don't even have to worry about it when election time rolls around, because we know that there have been so many damaging changes to the law that have put up so many barriers and that make it more difficult for people to vote. We want to make sure that you have a smooth pathway to vote, because I know that when we show up and we support candidates who elect our values, that is when we win. So thank you, friends, and I will see you next week.